Welcome back to Network Africa. The Ghana presidential elections are drawing closer, and thousands of public sector workers in the country have taken to the streets to protest against the governments for increasing utility tariffs. Ghana began a 3-year program with the International Monetary Fund back in April to fix its economy, which has been plagued by high deficits, widening public debt, and unstable local currency.
In December, the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission hiked electricity prices by 59.2% and water by between 69% and 89% depending on usage. The government argued that the increases were crucial to make the energy sector competitive as part of plans to solve the electricity crisis in the country. The demonstrators, most of them carrying placards and wearing red bands, chanted anti-government slogans as they marched peacefully, escorted by scores of policemen.
Moving on at 2016, we believe that this government must be sensitive enough to the welfare, to the predicament of the Ghanaian worker, and do a little in utilities, in power and all that. So just so we can have relief. If not, I don't know how we will be managing our life.
As soon as the prices of the petroleum increases, then everything will increase automatically, and it will also eat into your pockets.
Ghana, a major commodities exporter, signed a 3-year aid program with the International Monetary Fund in April to fix its economy, dogged by deficits, public debts, and high inflation. Some protesters condemned the government for signing up to the IMF deal, saying it was inflicting increased hardship on the citizenry.
On that note, welcome to our Africa Tech segment on Network Africa. Now, Africa is rich in resources, including oil, gold, and minerals, to mention a few. But one untapped resource, or lightly tapped resource, is the tech industry. 2 decades ago, Africa began to chart a different course, hoping to see a boom in the tech industry with the switch from the use of landlines to mobile phones. 20 years later, mobile phone services account for more than 6% of the continent's gross domestic products. However, Africa has a lot of work to do to significantly improve investment and a growing population. For more on Africa's chances at leading the world in tech space, we're joined by Mr. Oluseyi Akindende. He's the co-founder of Digital Encode and ICT security expert. Mr. Oluseyi, thank you very much for joining us on Network Africa.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Now, you're the expert here. What do you think Africa's chances are in leading the world in the next internet space, or world space, if you may?
Well, I thank you very much for that question. Africa's chances are very, very, very good. You only need to look at, what has happened in the last, 5 to 10 years, and the penetration, the mobile penetration that we've seen, especially in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa. We've seen about 67% mobile penetration, and of course, within that, we've seen about a quarter of Africa, that's about 26% of them are actually on the internet. And you only need to compare this with what was happening even just 10, 15 years ago, where we barely had any registration on the internet. So this portends a lot of good things for the continent of Africa. And of course, all this points to the fact that the African continent is poised to make a quantum leap in the digital ecosystem going forward. So the chances are pretty much high.
Is there a specific technology? My question to you is this. It's hard for me to somewhat understand or agree with you when you say we can actually take the lead, when I know that we're not the authors of the internet here. It's a bit hard to wrap that around. So I need you to explain that a bit more. How can we lead when we're not the authors of this?
To be honest, you don't actually have to author, and in fact, we are even more we're better positioned at this point in time than, the Western world, because it's the so-called standing on the shoulders of giants. So we have leapfrogged the technology. We've passed the stages of, testing and making things, things are pretty much at, almost, full speed now. So we can just jump that trend, having not, we have not gone through that process of, testing and trial and errors that come with, the formative years of technology. So we can now jump on it and start to, build solutions, start to look for, constructive solutions that would address our own problems that we can even subsequently export, to the nation at large. For instance, we have things like, farmers who are there, how do they get to know, weather forecasts and all that in remote villages? With technology, with the internet, you can bring this, to farmers. Schooling, education, for instance, you can begin to give electronic books, you can begin to give e-services, e-government. Yes. These are things that we can, you have to look at it from the point of view of addressing our own specific technology. Another good example is the financial services sector in Kenya,
I'm so sorry, but I have to cut you short at this point.
Can remotely send
but I hope you will join
us.
I'm so sorry, I have to cut you short at this point because we're actually out of time. But I hope you will join us in our next segment to tell us how we can what steps we can actually take to lead the world in this internet space that you spoke of. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time. And on that note, here is our question of the day. Do you think Africa can take the lead in the next internet world space? Feel free to send us your feedback either via email or Twitter. The address and handle are right there on your screen. Thank you so much for watching Network Africa on Channels Television. I'm Cynthia Are.